When I was 6 years old, we lived in Salt Lake City. My family were adventurous and outdoors people. We liked to go camping, hiking, and one afternoon we decided to go for a picnic in the Wasatch Mountains. And we found a beautiful picnic spot right beside a creek. We sat down to lunch, and a cute little chipmunk jumped on top of the picnic table and grabbed the hot dog right from my bun, and we had a good laugh. After lunch, we ventured down to the creek. We noticed in the bushes that there was something unusual poking out of the bushes. It had antlers, and we didn't know what it was. We went to investigate. And to our surprise, we seen a moose head, a very large moose head with jagged flesh around the neck, and there was bones and veins coming out. And we were really shocked. It had really big eyes, and the rest of the body wasn't anywhere to be found. My dad walked up and down the creek, and he could not find the body. And I remember him telling my mother that he thought that was very unusual, that something could rip the head of a moose off. They'd have to be very strong. So we started walking up the trail. It was a pretty steep incline, and after a little bit, my little sister started getting tired. And so my dad picked her up and put her on his shoulders, and we continued walking, and we took a few breaks at the stream. And at that time, you could actually drink from the stream because it was perfectly safe. My dad, brother, and sister decided to stay behind and fill up some canteens. And when they were doing that, my mom and I decided to venture off and go on the trail ahead of them. And I remember thinking, what a beautiful day. It was so perfect. And there was just a little bit of wind coming down from the mountains, and it was so nice. And it was a spectacular view as we were climbing the mountain. On the left side, you could see the valley below, and on the right side was the forest and boulders. And I remember thinking, should we be so far ahead of my family? And I started to smell something bad, and I didn't know what it was. It had like a rotting smell. And I asked my mother, "What is that smell, Mom?" And she was like, "I don't know. Maybe it's a dead animal." We kept hiking up the trail, enjoying the view. It was such a beautiful day, and my father and brother and sister were still far behind us. And something stirred in the bushes off to my right, and I just didn't know what it was. And as we were coming around the corner, something stopped us dead in our tracks. I felt the sensation of fur all over me, and I looked up to see this huge furry man beast standing before me, and we were so shocked. This happened like in a second, but it was like it happened in slow motion, and the creature began to raise his arms like this, and my mom came out of her daze, and she grabbed me by my hand, and she took off running with me. And she was tall, and I was little, and I could only keep up with her for a very short time, and we ran down that mountain, and I started to get covered in scrapes, and my pants started tearing, and we started to see my father and brother and sister as we were going down, and we did not even stop for them. We went right by them, and my mom said, "Run! Bigfoot is on his way! He's after us!" And they did not question. They just took off running too. And we got all the way down to the bottom of the trail, and we sat in the Volkswagen. And my mom retold the story to my dad, and my dad was really interested. My dad was like the indigenous Rambo, and he had a long Bowie knife on his side. He was so brave, and he was not afraid. So my dad came down the mountain, and he didn't see Bigfoot. He had told me that Bigfoot is a helper of people, of our native people, but he said also he could cause harm. And when Bigfoot is hunting and you're nearby him, he could pick up very large boulders and toss them near you and scare you away. About a year later, we were hiking once again. We were going to go on a picnic, and in the middle of the lake, these people in a canoe started screaming, and we just couldn't figure out what are they screaming at, and everybody around the lake just started looking at them in the middle of the lake. Then they started pointing, and we looked at what they were pointing at, and it was Bigfoot, just as I seen before. And Bigfoot did a big growl, and everybody was just running, except my family. So my father started to communicate with Bigfoot. He raised his hands like this, and Bigfoot raised his hands like this. He crossed his arms like this, and Bigfoot crossed his arms like that. And then he leaned against the tree, and believe it or not, Bigfoot leaned against the tree. Then he turned and vanished, and that's the last I seen of Bigfoot. And I'm very grateful that I got to experience these encounters, because I feel like Bigfoot has given me creativity and open-mindedness, and that has helped me to be a more creative artist. Perhaps Bigfoot has given me the ability to see things that other people can't see.